What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. And today we are on episode 4 of our direct drive battle, and this is printer number 5. Today we are going to look at the Biqu BX. Really excited for this machine, and that's because if you take a look at it, the silhouette of it is really familiar. But then the longer you look, the more you realize that it has some of the best stuff already on it. It has a really fast motherboard, 32-bit, some of the fastest on a machine of this style. It has a giant 7-inch touchscreen that can be used in Marlin mode with the encoder if that's something that you're into. Another giant leap forward, having a huge, easy-to-use touchscreen. It has one of the lightest direct drive extruders using a smaller NEMA 15 motor on it. It even uses an HDMI cable to communicate between the motherboard and the extruder, so that's something really interesting as well. Auto bed leveling, dual Z, PEI textured steel sheet. It has just everything that you might want on this style printer already on it. This is like buying an STI over an Impreza, or buying a Lotus over a Miata, or buying a Golf R instead of a Jetta. It's one of those things. It's a souped up hot rod version of what we are all used to seeing and we all already know. So this is really going to be a test to see if it's worth, modifying your own printer, going through printing parts, wiring stuff, ordering everything from all over the place and putting it all together yourself, or going with something like this that has everything that you might dream of putting on your machine already on it. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to unbox this machine. I'm going to show you everything that it comes with right out of the box, what it's like to assemble. We'll go over my first impressions with it. Then over the next few days, I'll be doing a bunch of test prints, things that are on the SD card. I'll slice things myself. We'll put a bunch of filament through it and see what it's like and how it compares, at least initially, to some of the other machines that I have around me and that we have been checking out on this channel. I'm also going to be printing with IIIDMAX filaments. I've been really enjoying those the past few months now. But also, I want to bring your attention to this filament. This is a silk filament by YouSu, and it too has a trick up its sleeve. Depending on which angle you look at, you'll see a different color. And this one in particular is green and blue, and it's silk and shiny, and it prints really smoothly. Here is what a benchy might look like in a filament like this, and it's definitely going to be one of those filaments you use to show off what your machine can do and show off really fun prints, because it just looks so smooth and the color change is really cool to look at. So definitely want to showcase that filament on something larger or longer. We'll get to it at some point, but really excited to take a look at that filament as well. So let's take this thing out of the box. Let's see what it comes with and what it's like to assemble. And then I'll see you here in a few minutes. Let's check it out. All right, got my blade. Let's see what's in the box. Woo-wee! All right, I'll try to take everything out and lay it out on the table. And I'll kind of go over things as I take them out of here. Big piece of foam. Look at that shape. Nice. All right, right off the bat, we have the hot end. Look at this little guy. Look at that. It has a Fadus block. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, this is extremely compact. For example, this is the size of just a regular hot end, and this is the whole extruder, including the fan right on the back. Little sister board with a light, HDMI cable on the top. Yeah, easily one of the most compact hot ends. All right, we have a box. What do we have in the box? We have the most giant of screens. Hey, hello. This is the screen. I mean, it is monstrous. That's the size of my hand. Here is the back of the display. And this is actually one thing I didn't even go over. This has a spot for a Raspberry Pi. You can actually install a Raspberry Pi right on the back of this. It is something that this printer handles natively. You don't have to install anything extra. It will hook directly up, and then you'll be able to use the I/O on this board. So definitely something really cool, and definitely not something many other machines can say. We have our power cable. We have our filament spool holder. Let's see what we got in these baggies. We have, looks like a 2040 extrusion end, spare screws, Oh, this has step numbers, so you can see which step to use this stuff. Spare nozzle. Okay, bunch of hardware. Hey, look at that. We have our little rubber ducky that you can get in every Biqu Tech piece. I have a few. What else we got? Another baggie. Let's see. Data bag. I bet that's where the SD card is. Yep, SD card and SD card reader. All right, we will check out those cables a little later on. Looks like there's a 90-degree bend. I bet this is stuff that you need for the Raspberry Pi connection as well. And we have tools. I see side cutters. Nice. These feel good. Nice little protective cover on them. Cool. We got our tools, Allen keys, zip ties, wrenches. You know, I always like to see these big wrenches in here because most of the time you can use these for the holding the block when the block is hot. The block is hot, the block is hot. When the block is hot, you can use this wrench to change the nozzle. Very useful. Did I just sing Lil Wayne? So we got the user manual and the after sales card. We have the second part of the spool holder. So here we have the top gantry, the Z and the X. Nice and smooth movement. Here we have this nice carbon style printing right on the extrusions, and they're the smooth kind. Look at these nice machined brackets instead of the super cheap stamped ones. We have some belt tensioners. Let's flip this around. We have dual Z with bearings on top. Do they have play? Yes, they have a little bit of play. That's good. Okay, we have a little sample filament, PLA. The rest is the machine. Let me go ahead and set this down and bring the printer up. Looks like it's almost completely assembled. All right, here we have the PEI sheet. Nice texture on that. That's fun. Oh, double-sided. Okay, that's even better. Is the texture the same? Let's see. Yep, the texture's the same. All right, one more time. All right, sorry. That's the last time I'll do that. Actually, I'm not promising that. Snap. All right, I like that all of the hardware is taped down to the machine so it doesn't just thrash around in shipping. That's nice. Everything has little labels on it. I did see, according to the specs, that this does have a Meanwell power supply, so a nice quality power supply. We got more foam. This thing is packaged nicely, that's for sure. I actually like that the bed was not allowed to move around everywhere. Not too many machines that I can recall, at least from in recent times that I've unboxed it, have had these to stop the bed from moving. Let's see how the bed is. Oh, the bed is perfect. No need to adjust there. Nice smooth operation. Good tension on the belts. Yeah, I mean, even the location of the power button is custom on this machine. As you can see, it goes right through the extrusion instead of like on the back like it typically would be. Yeah, everything's very nice. The bed rides on a wide set of 2020 extrusions, which is really nice. One thing I do want to check out is what it looks like under here. And this is the top of the machine. There's 4 screws to get to the motherboard. It looks like it has a fan right on the front. All right, have 4 screws off. Let's see. Oh, it's just a nice cover here. Let me bring you in. All right, let's take a look. Very nice. So as you can see here, let me go ahead and lean this thing in for you. Here is what it's looking like inside. We have a nice cooling fan, a blower style. The wire management is nice and neat. We have removable and adjustable Biqu Tech steppers with heat sinks. We have an ARM STM32 chip. The power cables and everything that has to do with heat is crimped, nice and clean. There's an RGB header. And that's because another thing I forgot to mention, this printer has RGB lighting already pre-installed. All right, let's get that cover back on. I actually like how easy it is to get into this motherboard. You don't have to flip the machine. You don't have to do anything extra. This is definitely a good way to do a motherboard enclosure. I'm taking notes since I'm making one. All right, there is the RGB that's built into the top, so that's going to shine light downward. Definitely a welcome feature. Okay, let me go ahead and show you everything that came in the box, give you a closer look, and then let's go ahead and assemble it. Although this looks like it's just going to be setting this on top, putting 4 bolts in from the bottom, and then just making sure everything's connected. I'll go ahead and speed through that one. I'll see you here in a second. All right, let's take a closer look at what this thing has to offer. I'll just go through every menu and just talk about it. Right at first glance here, we have all the information that you might want to see. We have the hot end temperature, we have the bed temperature, we have the fan speeds, we have the speed of how fast everything is printing, we have the feed rate, we have the menu here, we have a big info screen and it's telling us that we need to level the machine, and we have the print function. Invalid mesh, no leveling data, please execute leveling action if you, I guess, need. If we hit print, yep, okay, so when we hit print, we get a choice of different ways to get prints off of the machine. So first is the TFT SD, because the side of the screen has a full-size SD. USB, there's also a USB hole on the side of the display, and you can use those. And then there's onboard, and they do give you a little SD card. I think it's a 2 GB card, which is kind of strange. It should have at least been 8, but you know, it is what it is. It's better than nothing. And when we click that, we should be able to see some files, models. Okay, oh, look at that. They give you previews of the G-code. That's great. We have a Rexy. We have something called a drawer. I think this might actually go into the extrusion on the left side of the machine. That's kind of cool. We'll print that. And a benchy. Nice. I don't even have to slice. So there you go. So, and I print a ton of benchies all the time. So we'll definitely check out the drawer and whatever the Flexi improvements have been to the Flexi Rexy over here. Yeah, I haven't printed one of those in ages, but that's cool. I really like this. I wonder if all G-code is shown in previews like this. You know, we'll definitely go ahead and test that out. So let's go back. Let's go to the menu. So we have heat and fan settings. So let's just go left to right. So preheat. Wow, okay, we have everything you could possibly imagine. PLA, PETG, ABS, wood, TPU, nylon. Looks like this is a setting where you want which thing you want to heat. We're going to keep it on both. So yeah, I'm assuming you could also preset these like you can in most firmware. So yeah, that's really nice, really easy to be able to preheat your machine for whichever settings you might want. Let's go back. Let's see what heat is. Okay, so this is how you do an individual heat in case you wanted to do it in small steps or just to do a micro adjust and a big stop, which is nice. Also worth mentioning, everything is very, very easy to press. So that's nice. You don't have to press hard or anything like that. Cool down is cool down. Let's see what fans is. Let's go full. Oh, that's the part cooling fan. Cool down, we know what that is. Okay, let's go to movement. We have home. I'm not going to press that yet because I'll have to go through leveling. Moving. Okay, we have the Y, the X, the Z. Wow, 100. Nice. Okay. So micro movements here. Let's go up, down, backward, forward, left, right. Okay, everything moves nice and easy. And as soon as I started moving, I hear the motherboard fan turn on. So that's nice because the drivers on the motherboard started working. So the fan came on because it needs cooling when it's working. ABLs for the sensor, we'll do that a little later. Leveling for the sensor, we'll do that a little later. Baby stepping is nice. This is usually while it's printing. You can go ahead and micro adjust where your Z offset is. So that's going to be a setting there. Disarm all steppers, which means nothing locks after you move it. That's nice. BL off, let's see what that is. Okay, no leveling data. Okay, so we can't turn off settings because we haven't done a leveling yet. Okay, that's fair. We'll check that out later. Let's go back. All right, so extrude. Obviously, we're not going to be able to extrude because the nozzle isn't heated. But from what I remember, you can hit this to normal and fast and slow. Yeah, so this is the speed at how fast you want it to extrude. And it looks really nice that you could really easily unload and load filament right here. And this is how much? Wow, up to 200. So look at that. You can actually really easily do your E-steps by just having it already preset in here. You can just hit load and it will do exactly 100 and you'll be able to do your E-steps that way. All right, we have emergency stop. This has got to be one of my favorite features on pretty much any machine. I really wish a lot more machines would do this type of thing. This is the terminal. And what this lets you do is put in G-code. This will let you do anything that you want to do with Marlin. If you want to tune your machine, this is the way you can do it. If you want to get settings out of your machine to read them, this is the way you do it. If it's not in the menu, you can go ahead and do it manually. So nice to be able to have this. It's definitely an advanced feature, but it is really, really great once you get an understanding of 3D printing and these machines and how they function. This is definitely one of my favorite things to be able to have access to. And it's right here in the menu on this giant screen. Let's see what custom is. I think this is adding a custom button to the front. You can have it be whatever one of these settings you want, just for quick access. All right, let's go into settings. Screen. We have language, rotate in case you wanted to rotate this in some other way. Sounds, turn them on and off. I know this click could get annoying. I kind of like it though, a little feedback. So these colors typically on these machines is for Marlin mode. And to get into Marlin mode, you typically hold the display here and eventually it'll go into Marlin mode. I'm actually not sure how it is on this machine. I guess it's not that way, so we'll figure that out a little later. Maybe it's holding this, let's see. Yep, yeah, so this is how you actually choose the mode. So Marlin mode goes back to like your super traditional Marlin menus, and it's a little bit different on the screen because it's a large screen, so it changes it a bit, but the menus are the same. So if you're really used to that old school Marlin style screen, this is your mode. This is the menu that we were in, and this is Raspberry Pi mode. In case you wanted to run your Raspberry Pi 4 on the back of this, you can fully have Octoprint right here on the touch screen. Definitely another amazing feature. Love it. So let's go back to this menu. We were in settings, screen. Yeah, so that's everything here. And this actually lets you control the colors of that Marlin side. All right, let's go to machine. Parameters. Okay, so this is going to let you tune the machine exactly how you want it. We got steps per millimeter. We got driver current, so you don't have to do it down there. You can do it through here. Max feed rate, max acceleration, jerk, probe offset. So that's how you can set where that probe is on your machine in case you moved it. We have TMC bump sensitivity. Okay, we actually might have to adjust that depending on how harshly the homing is on the machine. We have forward retraction recover, firmware retraction, auto firmware retract, linear advance. Interesting. I'm guessing, let's see if this is built in. It is. So you can do your linear advance calculations right there and then input them. ABL settings, what's in here? Okay. Oh, this is setting your fade. We haven't done this yet because we first need to do our mesh leveling on this. Offset second nozzle. That's interesting. I'm assuming that's just a part of having this custom firmware on here. Hybrid. Let's see what else. This is how you save settings, reset, so on and so forth. So as you can see, tons of customization right here through the screen. We have the terminal again, custom again, LED color. This is the top. Yep, we have red LEDs are on, green LEDs, blue, and white. Man, that's nice. This turns off. Actually, I'll keep white on. Yeah, let's keep white on. Let's go back. Tuning. PID tuning right here. Don't have to do it through that Marlin menu. You can just do this. And essentially PID tuning, does it do both nozzle and bed? Yep, very easy. So what this is going to do is it's going to heat your nozzle or your bed depending on what you select, and then it cools it, heats it, cools it. And what this does is it lets the motherboard learn how long it takes for your hot end and for your bed to cool and what it needs to do to keep it at temperature. So if you have any kind of fluctuations in your temps, do a PID tuning and it usually helps even that out, which is really nice. Tune your steps. This is extremely important. Look, you can do the extrusion right here through this setting. So yeah, this makes it so much easier to just fine-tune your machine and get this thing perfectly printing perfectly how you like it. So definitely welcome all of those things. And EEPROM, I think this saves everything to EEPROM. Yep, save, restore, reset. Just makes everything so much easier. You don't have to hook it up to your computer. You don't have to run any kind of rudimentary software on your computer just to get things hooked up and back to running. I really like the way that these TFT screens are set up and the firmware set up, and I think a lot more printer manufacturers should include an advanced tab on their machines to give you this level of customization. And it's not even customization really, it's tuning your machine, it's giving you that control. And keep in mind, you don't have to use any of this. You can just keep it at this level, you can just hit print and go, and if you really need to do something, you have it here. So I really like that. All right, let's go to feature. We have show acknowledgement and terminal, and it looks like these are all little on-off little toggles. Invert axes, move speed, start G-code before print, interesting. So you can have start and then G-code instead of having it in your slicer, you can have it here. Cancel G-code, persistent status. Files view list mode. Oh, okay, so instead of viewing the actual files, you could have it in, you could have it in a list mode. Let's see, rotary knob LED. Ooh. Oh, nice. Okay. I kind of like that purple, but let's do white to match our top LEDs now. LED brightness. Okay, let's keep it at 100. LED dim. Oh, so this is when it dims. Yeah, 50 is fine. LCD dim idle okay, so this is how long LCD will dim after you know, idle. Basically set a timer for how long the LCD will stay in color and then how long it'll dim. Yeah, about 5 minutes is probably fine. I usually stare at this thing, it will stare at my printer for longer than that, so we'll keep it there. Marlin mode in full screen, we'll just keep it how it is. Power loss, yep, let's keep that. Okay, info, we are running Marlin 2.0, March 19th, 2021, so almost a little over a full year that the software has existed. Maybe there's an update for it, I haven't checked honestly. So that's which board we have, version 3, that's cool. Oh, that's the screen, the TFT 70 V3, firmware's for that. And we've used about half of the flash memory, which is totally fine. Again, and connection. Okay, so this is just your basic emergency stop and shut down. So that's actually a thing that you want to do if you have a Raspberry Pi on the back. You technically want to shut it down instead of just unplugging it or turning it off abruptly. So yeah, that's as far as the screen goes. Really nice, really enjoy the way this looks. And I really enjoy the amount of settings that are on here. You know, I definitely can rave about that. So the only thing we have left to do is do some leveling. So let's go ahead and tackle that. Okay, so now we should be ready to print. So what I did there was I actually went to leveling first, and I went through the manual leveling that's on the screen. And the reason for that is there's actually a sensor in the back for leveling the Z first. So you go ahead and level the gantry with the bed by using these automated settings and the wheels, and that gets everything nice and flat. Then you go back and then you go ahead and you do your ABL mesh leveling, which is automated. It goes through all the points and sets your mesh. Then you can set your Z fade and your Z offset. And once you set your Z offset, everything saves to EEPROM so that everything is going to pull up the mesh every time you turn it on and work every time. So now the printer should be ready and everything is saved and it's just ready to go and print. So that's exciting. I did notice something interesting, that the LEDs turned off at some point. So I'm going to go ahead back into LED color and turn that back on. There's an LED on the bottom and it lights up with the LEDs that are on the top. It actually matches the color to whatever you set. I kind of like the white one just so you can see what's going on in front of you, so we'll keep it there. Let's go ahead and save to EEPROM. Save just to make sure everything is saved. Settings stored, and maybe that's why they turned off, because we saved their EEPROM but this setting wasn't on. I'm not sure, but we'll mess with that as we get to it. So as far as I understand now, it's time to load some filament and get this thing printing. Let's go. Alright, so there it is, the Biqu BX. So I just want to start the whole thing off by saying I'm really surprised that I don't hear about this thing all the time, because I think it's an awesome printer. There's so much going on. With that said, it's not your first machine, that's for sure. It's complicated because it has everything. And most of the other machines that I recommend on the channel, they're definitely a little bit more beginner friendly because they don't have all the settings, and it makes it a little easier to learn and pick up. Whereas here, if you want to troubleshoot, you might have to dig through some menus a little bit deeper, and you might not understand what any of those things are, so you have more potential to mess things up and get further down into the black hole. With that said, if you're familiar at all with 3D printing and you've had a printer for a while, or 2 printers or 3 printers, this printer is definitely one of my favorites for that category. The screen is just unbelievable. I brought a regular display from a Voxlab Aquila, and obviously it's not lit, so it's a little hard to see, but you can see it's what, a third of the size, and that actually makes a pretty big deal. I know some people say that, you know, the screen isn't that big a deal for them because they all use Octoprint or Clipper, but this screen itself not only is high resolution and beautiful, but It also has a Raspberry Pi integration to the back. I don't have a Raspberry Pi 4. You can't get them right now because of shortages, but it integrates it fully. And what I mean by that is not only can you use this side, but all you have to do is just hold down this button right over here, go to Raspberry Pi mode, and it'll basically turn into a screen for your Raspberry Pi. So if you are running Octoprint, you can have that up on the screen. You can have a touch UI that you can just use your printer with Octoprint, but then you can also use it with Clipper. So and it integrates with that. So the screen is definitely one of the highlights of the machine. That's for sure. And actually, after seeing it, as some of you guys know, I'm building an Ultimate Aquila. I have a TFT 35 for that, but I might have to seek a TFT 70 after seeing what this is like, or the Raspberry Pad, if I can get my hands on a Raspberry Pi CM4. But that's beside the point. There's a lot of things to really like here, some not to like, and actually this machine has so much that it's probably one of the only ones where I made a list like this. I don't have a teleprompter, I don't read from anything in these videos, but this had so much going on that I had to make a list, and I titled it Cool Things and Not So Cool Things. So let's start with not so cool. I want to just get that over with because there's so much other stuff to go over and to praise. So let's just start there because there is a few. So the standard Cura profile does some funky movements. So this is a pretty basic one. Biqu has a BX built into Cura, so if you wanted to slice your own stuff, you just select it from a list. But the start G-code does a lot before the print actually starts. It initializes the Z-axis alignment. It waits for the probe to get hot. It does a full-on bed leveling, which you can do, once before several prints instead of each and every print. Because on a print like this, for example, it's multi-part print. When I print the headlights or the taillights that are literally 1 or 2 minute prints, I'd have to wait up to 10 minutes for it to run through this giant procedure. And that's nice for big prints like this, where it would take most of the night. But it's not so good when you're printing your normal everyday stuff. So if you're well versed in start and then G-code, definitely take a look at that when you're making a Cura profile. Next is probably one of my only real complaints outside of like nitpicking with the machine, is that the machine doesn't have an all metal hot end. This is around the $500 machine. It literally has everything that you could put on a printer of this style, yet it doesn't have an all metal hot end. The heat break is lined with PTFE, and that's okay. It's going to have really great PLA and PETG performance, maybe even ABS, but in order to take this thing to the level that I think it is, I think it should have that $10 upgrade. And I say 10 bucks because on their website, when you're ordering the machine, you could just include one for $10. So kind of strange that that's not already on the machine. And I'm sure in future iterations of something like this that Biqu will have, they're going to do that, because I think it's just not worth the hassle of running with the PTFE lined hot end. So that's the main complaint that I have, which is pretty minor. The setting fade height on the machine crashes the screen UI. So that's actually a bug that I found. If you're going to go to leveling and you set your fade, which is basically once the mesh is set, how far do you want it to take the mesh? Do you want it to go all the way, or do you want it to fade back into 0, which is what I usually do, and I usually set it to around 10 or 15 layers. But when you do that on the screen freezes, and actually found a workaround where if you go into Marlin mode by holding your button and then come back out, you can get access to your screen again, so you don't have to restart anything. And it actually has these prompts that show you what's happened, and it will say that everything's saved. So it's just like literally a bug where the screen itself freezes. Couldn't find a way to preview slice G-code files. So another little nitpick: when you first get the machine and you go to print and you go to the models, you see these beautiful G-code previews, which I thought was just great. It's just a nice thing to look at when you're going through your prints, which one you need to find, especially if you're storing a bunch on the machine. And I couldn't really find a way or search on Google or anywhere in the manual where I can slice my own files and have it have it preview those G-code files. So if you guys know how to do that, let me know, because I think that's a really nice feature and something that I would do pretty much every time if I'm slicing to this or other similar machines that have SKR boards with TFT screens, since that's a feature. So please let me know if you guys know. The Z is not sensorless homing. So all the other axes on the machine have sensorless homing, where there isn't a sensor to click. It actually uses the stepper to hit against a stop, and once there's resistance, it stops. The Z axis is still on a regular switch, and that it definitely makes it a little bit more confusing. However, it works perfect. This thing, I only leveled it one time. It has been absolutely great every time, so not much to complain about, but just strange that that couldn't get sensorless homing as well. And maybe that has something to do with fade of Z and the alignment of the two Z rods, because they're not belted at the top. I'm not sure, I'm no engineer, but it's just weird to see that there's one switch there but no switch anywhere else. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. What else we got? I think there's one more. To get the screen back to full brightness, you need to actually physically press the knob. So right now I could use the screen all I want, but to get it back to full brightness and to get that LED glowing, you do have to press the actual knob on the screen. A little bit weird. It should just go back to, you know, its full brightness and have that LED on, especially because the whole thing has these nice looking LEDs, and they're very useful actually. So a bunch of nitpicks for otherwise really great machines. So now let's go into all the cool stuff, and actually it kind of bleeds into, you know, the LEDs. The LEDs are a really nice addition. I know this is a modification that people do, and I know Marlin supports LEDs like this, so it's really nice to have them here. They show you things, like when the printer is heating, they change a color. When the print is done, they change a color. You know, you can set it to, for example, I set mine to white just so you can see the work area a little bit better. I think that's just a really nice little touch. It makes it feel luxurious, you know. Then we have the pop-up tooltips, tell you every function of the printer and what it's doing. So whenever the printer is doing something, these little pop-ups pop up at the top saying exactly what function the printer is running. So if it's homing, if it's leveling the bed, if it's heating something, even down to you know, you being able to write text in the start G code, for example. There's all sorts of things, and if something's not going right, you'll be able to see it by clicking the info and just reading everything that it's done. And I think that's really brilliant for an advanced machine like this that has so much functionality, so much function to it. I think it's really nice to be able to see what the printer's thinking and what the printer's doing, you know, every single time it's making any kind of function. I love it. I think those little tooltips are really cool. You still have full settings access while you're printing. I think this is a really, really important feature. Because it lets you really tinker with the machine, especially if you're doing a print, something's wrong, or you just remembered that you wanted to change some settings. You no longer have to wait for the whole print to finish. Typically, when you're printing, the entire interface is completely different on the screen, but here you can hit more and it goes back to this menu where you can modify majority of the things on the screen. You can even still set settings to EEPROM, which is really nice. That's definitely an advanced thing. I know a majority of people aren't going to be using that, but I had to use it during the setup of this machine, and I thought that that was really nice to see. I haven't seen that on pretty much any other machine, so that's really cool. Like that feature. The build plate. The texture on the build plate is more coarse than all the other ones that I have personally tried, and also it is a really thin sheet, which, you know, is good for heating. It makes it heat faster, but it's also nice because you can really easily flex it, like flex it significantly more than other PEI sheets. And I really do love the texture. I think you can see it best on this print. Let me see if I can have it catch the light. It just looks really nice. It makes it feel like a finished product, which is cool. The other PEI sheets that I've experienced with, they have more of like a sandpaper, I guess like a coarse sandpaper texture, whereas this is smoother and more coarse, just like the texture is further spread apart, which I really like. Auto align Z rods. I actually mentioned this previously, but in the settings you can have it auto align the Z's, so they're not belted. And there's two Z rods, and what it does is it uses the sensor to home on the left side, uses the sensor to home on the right side, and basically gets your gantry perfectly parallel with the bed, which is what you want. And that actually brings me to another point. Like, it does have really decent springs, but you technically don't even need them here. Solid mounts or silicone mounts would actually work really well on this machine because it has so much automation. The build area is 250 by 250. Not something that I even noticed at first or read, because I just assumed that it's a 235 by 235 or a 220 by 220, but no, it's slightly larger at 250 by 250. So you get that little bit extra more space on the bed. I thought that was cool. It's quiet. When done, all the fans turn off. I said this before when I reviewed like SKR boards or things like that, but Biqu does that really well. Right now the printer is on. There's absolutely zero noise because it doesn't need it. There's nothing running on the machine, so it's completely off, and actually turned the screen so that it stays on. Usually the screen would even turn off, and I think that that's a really, really cool feature. When a print is done, it doesn't have to whirl here and sit and ruin your fans, and it sits nice and quietly, which is nice. It does make noise when it prints. For example, this metal gear touches another metal gear, and when there's quick retractions, it almost sounds like a little click. It's not like a skip at all. It's just the metal mechanics of the hot end itself, or of the extruder, make a sound. But otherwise, it's relatively quiet. I definitely have significantly louder machines, so this is definitely a big plus. The interface is super intuitive. Now, I know that this is kind of like basic, this is an opinion, but here's what I mean. Just after using it for a couple days, let's say right now I wanted to set this thing up to print PLA, I would go to Menu, Heat, Preheat, Preheat PLA, Back, Print, SD card, choose model. That's it. It's that intuitive, it's that easy to do, and it just makes it, easy to use. Let's hit cool down to stop it. It's so fast, it's so responsive, the menu is just a pleasure to use, and I definitely really enjoy that. The screen, I already mentioned the screen size is just absolutely epic. I'm definitely going to seek out the TFT70 to put on my own machines, but that's it. That's all I have written for the cool and not cool. I'm sure I'm missing stuff, but I definitely really enjoyed it. Let's talk about the print quality. The print quality is great. I printed this very large 650% tentacle in this beautiful YouSu filament. I mean, this filament is just an absolute stunner. It's just a showpiece. But the quality, I printed this multi-piece car here. This is a little rabbit truck. And I printed a similar model on the Ender 3 S1, which I highly recommended. I thought it was great. And if I put these things side by side, there is literally zero way of knowing which machine printed what. The quality just came out perfectly. All the parts fit with each other. There's absolutely no complaints that I have about print quality. The only thing I saw was on this larger print, there is a little bit of over extrusion occasionally, slash I think the Z-rods need to be lubricated and adjusted. The couplers on the Z-rods do have 4 screws in each of them, and I think that you could easily remove at least 2 on each side and even loosen them a bit, just so that the Z-rods don't have any influence on the Z-axis, and I think that alone will already be better for the machine. So that's just something to tweak. But yeah, the print quality, as you guys saw by the video, this little drawer, this is a must. You gotta print this little drawer. It puts the tools into the chassis, really nice. But look at the quality of this. The quality is just incredible. It almost looks like an injection molded piece. So yeah, really happy with the machine. I do think the price is actually pretty fair for what you get. Obviously, I'd like to see it a little lower, but you could say that about any printer. I really enjoy the machine. I don't even know what else I would do except for just a heat break. I guess the only other thing I could mention is that the cooling could be better. The cooling fan is kind of like away, hidden in the back of the box, which is an interesting design choice. I did see on Thingiverse there's a modification for a 50-15 fan that goes on the front, and it's a really easy print. It would be really just easy and cheap to do that modification to get significantly more cooling. So I think that if I was to hold on to this machine, which I plan on doing, I think an all-metal heat break and one of those 50-15 fans with a cooler, and then that's it. Just enjoy this machine. I think this thing has a lot to go with it, and then if you're a type of person that wants a machine to tinker with, you can tinker with this thing all day. It's still this classic chassis. You can still modify it in various ways. You can still tweak it in various ways, and I think that that's the most important part. The fact that you can get to the G-code, the fact that you can modify it, the fact that you can expand it with modules. Yeah, definitely gets my recommendation, just not for your first machine. I think it's a bit too advanced for a first machine. Alright guys, I think that's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with someone else who might think that this is useful. And definitely check out the links in the description below, specifically the Patreon, where you can see these videos up to a week, sometimes even longer, earlier than everyone else. You can comment and talk to me directly there. Then hop into our Discord if you're having trouble with your machines, if you have questions about printers, if you want to just show off some amazing prints and talk with like-minded people. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 member mark in the Discord, so definitely a fun place to be. Alright guys, that's all for me for this one. As always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.